Hercules is born on a rainy day to Zeus and Alcmene, a mortal woman. And this means Hercules was half mortal and half god. Sadly, Zeus's queen Hera saw Hercules' birth as an insult. Alcmene named the child Hercules for its meaning, glory of Hera. But this didn't appease Hera. Instead, she wanted him gone. One night, when Alcmene has her eyes off the little child, two vicious snakes sprout from the statue of Hera and make their way to attack the child. But that's when it is revealed that Hercules takes after his father. It's gonna take more than snakes for Hera to get rid of him now. Once Hercules was of age, the gods commanded him to perform 12 labors, and if he completes them all and survives, Hera agrees to let the man live. Of his 12 labors, he fought the Lernaean Hydra, battled the Erymanthian boar, and his greatest labor was to defeat the Nemean lion, a creature whose hide could not be penetrated by any weapon. But of course, it was no match for Hercules' bare hands. The scene cuts, and we see Iolaus of Athens, a great storyteller and Hercules' nephew, being cut short from the stories by pirates who have captured him. The pirates do not believe that such a man as strong as that doesn't exist. However, Hercules soon shows up to prove them wrong. He informs them that the king had paid him handsomely to get rid of them, so he gives them two options: to either run away and never come back, or let him get rid of them himself. But the pirate captain chooses otherwise, claiming Hercules is outmatched. A fight ensues, and Hercules takes them out like mere flies. He also gets a little help from his party, which consists of a king-turned-prophet Amphiaraus of Argos, thief Autolycus of Sparta, feral warrior Tydeus of Thebes, Amazon archer Atalanta of Scythia. He then proceeds to rescue Iolaus just before worse could have happened. Afterwards, Hercules grants the pirates their freedom, excluding the captain, whom he viciously strikes. Days later, while on the Macedonian coast in northern Greece in 358 BC, Hercules and his team are approached by Erginia at a local tavern and usual joint spot. Atalanta initially denies her coming close to Hercules, but Erginia tells her that the message she brings is for Hercules to hear. Hercules grants her listening ears, and she relays to him that her father, King Codice, needs help to battle against Rhesus, a well-known bloodthirsty warlord, and to put an end to the civil war Rhesus is waging. Unfortunately, Hercules is not interested in taking part. Well, at least not until Erginia offers to pay his weight in gold. Without hesitation, Hercules and his party travel with Erginia back to Thrace. On arriving, they are welcomed by General Cyticles and one small fan of Hercules, little Arius, son of Erginia. Arius is thrilled to see Hercules and immediately rushes towards him, talking non-stop about Hercules' greatness. His mother quickly takes him away, whispering for him to stay away from Hercules as men like him only breed violence. Just then, Cyticles comes back to inform Hercules that King Codice is ready to see him. He then asks Hercules if he has visited royalty before. He replies that he has once or twice, and briefly recalls his days in Athens. All of a sudden, he snaps out of it when he hears his children screaming and his wife being attacked. Lord Codice welcomed Hercules and asks if the legends lie about his fighting alone. Hercules tells him that his battles are nothing without his party members and introduces them one after the other. On introducing Amphiaraus, Codice mentions that the legends say that Amphiaraus saw his own death, so he fights every battle, knowing that his time has not come yet. He then walks over to Atalanta, saying that the task ahead is not suitable for a woman, even if she is an Amazon warrior. And Atalanta only takes out her bow of arrows to prove her own point, leading Codice to stand corrected. That evening, all the men are seated in a meeting discussing Rhesus and what a tyrant he is. People say he leads an army of monsters, half humans and half horses, but no one has seen them for sure. After the meeting, Codice takes Hercules outside to explain and show him the crowd of refugees that troop into his kingdom every day for help. Hercules then reminds him that he's only here to fight for the gold, But Cadiz tells him how others perceive him, and how he perceives himself will always be different. Eugenia then walks up to him as her father leaves to give him encouragement. She tells him that her son believes in him so much, and she wants to be able to believe too. Afterwards, Hercules meets back up with his party to tell them he's convinced and wants to help, but his friends aren't so thrilled about it until Hercules tells them that he got Eugenia to pay him double. And suddenly, everyone is convinced. On the other hand, Atalanta is not convinced they can achieve anything with an army of farmers, but Hercules says they shall be trained. The following day, training begins. Hercules addresses the men, after which he asks them to form a shield wall. Tydeus then runs through their defense, easily breaking the wall and knocking some of the men down. It's quite disappointing when you think these men are supposed to protect Thrace. Later that day, Cadiz summons Hercules to inform him that his scout has brought news on Rhesus's next move to attack Bessie lands. Cadiz suggests that they intercept, as that will be their only way of gaining the upper hand with Rhesus. However, Hercules tells him that his man still needs weeks and months of training before they can be fit for battle. Cadiz, on the other hand, tells him to assemble his men, saying the gods have offered them a gift, and so they must not squander it. But Hercules simply asks him if those gods are going to be fighting with them, and Cadiz tells him no, but the son of Zeus will. Hercules then walks out on him. That evening, as everyone gathers their stuff together in preparation for the morning, Hercules tries to hit on Atalanta, but she puts him in his place. Hercules only arrives later and warns the general to seek the company of his men henceforth. As Hercules walks away, Hercules notices Rhesus walk into their residence. Rhesus sees Hercules' chariot and approaches it upon hearing a strange sound. As he gets closer, he's startled by Tydeus and runs into Hercules on his way out. Hercules then reminds him that his mother told him to stay away, so he should listen. Rhesus then asks what's wrong with Tydeus, and Hercules tells him that Tydeus was born in war and that when he first found him, he was more animal than human. It turns out that Tydeus never speaks of what he saw. In fact, he never speaks at all. He takes the little boy back to his mother, who's busy nursing people. According to her, they've lost a good number of physicians to the war, so she took matters into her own hands. Rhesus then tells Hercules that he wants to be like him when he grows up, so as a peace offering and motivation to make that dream come true, Hercules gives him the tooth of the Nemean lion. Rhesus is beyond happy, and Eugenia thanks him. The following day, Hercules is addressing the men when he notices Lolos hidden amongst the soldiers. He pulls him out and tells him that his place is with King Cadiz, where he can easily be protected. But Lolos says he wants to fight, as all he's good at is storytelling. Hercules declines and tells him to go and join Cadiz. Soon, they're all marching out to Bessie, only to walk right into a trap. They believe that Rhesus' sorcery has turned the Bessie tribe against the Thracians. A disastrous battle breaks out between them, and the barely trained farmers are led by Hercules. They come out victorious thanks to Hercules and his party, but a good number of the Thracian army get killed in the fight. While Cadiz mourns his loss, Hercules reminds him that it is his fault, and that he warned him that his men were not ready. He asks for time to train the soldiers, and Cadiz finally agrees. That night, Eugenia arrives with some other physicians to tend to the wounded. She personally treats Hercules, during which she talks about Rhesus' father, who despises medicine like Hercules. Unfortunately, he was taken from them at war before Rhesus was born. Hercules then asks to know more about Rhesus, and Eugenia tells him about her boy before asking Hercules if he has children. Suddenly, the mood goes dark, and Hercules ends the discussion abruptly. After she leaves, Hercules falls asleep from the sedatives she had administered. He soon starts shivering from a nightmare, where it is revealed that Hercules had killed his own wife and kids, and as punishment, he was banished from Athens. Suddenly, he wakes up panting and leaves to take a walk. He walks outside the camp and to the back, where he sees thousands of dead men lying across with his wife and kids as part of the corpses. Suddenly, Cerberus, a three-headed beast, goes too far away at their flesh, causing Hercules to try and attack. But the beast disappears, and Tydeus shows up. Hercules then comes back to his senses, realizing it was all in its head. The next day, Amphiaraus confronts Hercules about his visions of Cerberus. He tells Hercules that he has one last labor to complete, and this is to face the beast that haunts him. Amphiaraus tells him that if he keeps running, it will keep coming after him. Meanwhile, Erginia joins the others at their campfire and asks to know the truth about Hercules and if he really slays his own family with his hands. The others claim that no one knows the truth, but they all vouch for Hercules, claiming he can't do such a thing. The training begins with Hercules' allies helping in training different sections based on the kinds of weapons they wield. It goes on for days, and when the training is finally complete, Hercules has a plan to confront Rhesus. After their discussion, Hercules meets Amphiaraus to inform him that they'll soon march into battle. He asks Amphiaraus if he has seen any visions about them winning or losing, but Amphiaraus tells him that the gods are being oddly silent about it. However, he has seen that he would be killed in a week, and according to him, it's in a place that looks an awful lot like hell. Meanwhile, Autolycus and Tydeus test the men one last time with the shield wall to conclude the training. This time, Tydeus fails to break through, and he personally confirms that they are ready with a smile. The following day, Hercules and Cadiz lead the men to confront Rhesus' army before Mount Asticus. They initially come across the silhouette of the men, which makes it seem like the tales of centaurs were real, but it's quite disappointing when the men ride down the hill, only for everyone to realize that they're just men on horses. That aside, a fierce battle soon breaks out. During the fight, Rhesus men launch arrows covered in flame at Hercules' men. While everyone takes cover, Amphiaraus decides this must be it and spreads out his arms to accept his fate. But when all the arrows fall around him, he realizes, well, maybe not this time, and continues to fight. With Hercules' man having the upper hand, Rhesus' men retreat, but Rhesus charges forward to attack Hercules, who intentionally waits until Rhesus is close enough before tossing him and his horse over, signifying their victory as Rhesus is apprehended. Rhesus, once a mighty warrior, now finds himself in the heart of Thrace, not as a hero, but as a captive. The townsfolk, fueled by anger and resentment, throw insults and objects his way, publicly humiliating him. But just when it seems like there's no end to this humiliation, Hercules steps in, his towering presence commanding the crowd's attention. He urges the people to halt their barrage, showing pity for the fallen warrior. Rhesus seizes this moment to defend himself, claiming he and his army aren't the true culprits behind the despicable acts of burning down villages. Later, in the palace hall, Rhesus is left chained on display while the men drink in victory. It's here that Hercules notices a subtle but significant change in the air. Erginia seems to be showing sympathy towards Rhesus. This piques Hercules' curiosity, and he decides to confront her. As the two engage in conversation outside the hall, Erginia reveals a shocking truth. Rhesus wasn't the ruthless aggressor as many believed. He was merely fighting back against Cadiz, who sought to expand his kingdom through brutal means. Erginia, though not in agreement with her father's methods, is trapped by fear. Her own cruel father had poisoned her husband, the previous king, and now he threatens her son Arius, the rightful heir to the throne. While they're talking, Ceticles walks in and informs Hercules that the king demands his attention. Once the mercenaries had received their hard-earned reward, they were prepared to bid Thrace farewell, ready to move on to new adventures. However, it seemed that Hercules had a different plan in mind. While the others were eager to leave, he had made a decision to stay behind and confront Cadiz. Surprisingly, all except Autolycus chose to stand by Hercules. Loyalty, respect, and a shared sense of purpose compelled them to support his noble cause. They were determined to make a stand against the oppressive Cadiz and put an end to his ruthless ambitions. Their resolve, however, was tested when they found themselves ambushed and outnumbered by Cyticles and his formidable band of men. Overpowered and captured, Hercules and his band were immediately chained up, and Ares was taken hostage. As Hercules, bound and vulnerable, struggles against his restraints, Cadiz introduces him to someone he was very well acquainted with, King Eurystheus, who has now become an ally of Cadiz. Eurystheus confessed to the drugging of Hercules on the fateful night when his family had tragically perished. In his eyes, Hercules had become a threat to his own power, and so he had to find a way to taint his name. It turns out that Hercules' family was actually killed by the 3 wolves sent by Eurystheus, which explains why Hercules keeps having constant hallucinations of Cerberus, the 3-headed beast. On the other hand, Cadiz orders Erginia to be executed for her betrayal. And just as Erginia is about to be beheaded, Hercules is praised and encouraged by Amphiaraus to believe in himself. In a burst of rage and a show of superhuman strength, Hercules breaks free of his chains, saving Erginia just in time. He then proceeds to defend himself against the wolves while Erginia tries to get the others out of their cells. However, she isn't fast enough, and Hercules is forced to face the beasts alone, single-handedly defeating them. He then releases the prisoners, including Rhesus, and goes to confront Eurystheus while the others head for Cadiz. Eurystheus pleads for his life and begs for forgiveness at the hands of Hercules. But Hercules tells him to find forgiveness with his family, killing him without a second thought and finally avenging his family. Unfortunately, he is taken by surprise by Cyticles, who get stabbed to death by Lolos. Outside, Hercules and his forces enter into a fight with Cadiz' army when Ares, who was taken hostage, is brought to the front, and Cody demands that Hercules bow to him and accept defeat if he wants the boy alive. As Cadiz counts to 3 for Hercules, Autolycus, who has decided to return, creates a suitable distraction, allowing the little boy to run as a fight breaks out. Tydeus gets mortally wounded while protecting Ares but fights on, making sure he is safe in his mother's arms before proceeding to slaughter numerous soldiers until he falls. Later, while dying in Hercules' arms, he speaks for the first time, calling out Hercules' name before finally passing on. A rage-filled Hercules then uses his inhuman strength one last time to push a massive statue of Hera from its foundations. The statue falls and crushes Cadiz and many of his soldiers. Ultimately, the battle is won by Hercules once again, and his final labor is completed. The surviving soldiers bow to Hercules, recognizing him as a demigod. And let's not forget that Amphiaraus is still alive. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2014 movie Hercules, starring Dwayne Johnson as the titular character. It is directed by Brett Ratner from a screenplay written by Ryan J. Condal and Ivan Spiliotopoulos. So, who else thought this was a refreshing movie? Let us know in the comments below with #Cinemerica.